Welcome back to the Breakaway USA show. My name is Gentry. I'm joined by Michael, the New Guards on Instagram and everywhere. And we're also joined by the founder, CEO, crypto wizard, Lance Parker himself. We are super excited to have you on to help educate people on crypto and CBDCs and basically the whole banking system. So Lance, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think what we're doing at BankX has some similar values as Breakaway USA. Parallel economy, exposing some of the things that are going on. So it'd be an interesting conversation, I think.
Lance, why don't you give us a background on who you are, why you got into crypto, and how there's some similarities between what we're doing and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I've been in technology for 20 years. I was an economics major at George Mason University, so I have that interest. So that sort of led me into crypto, and I started to see some of the things that I thought that this could disrupt. So I've been in crypto since 2014, sort of watching Bitcoin when it was back at $200. So no, I didn't buy any then, and it was in building some decentralized apps that was using a stable coin that I thought, oh, I think I could build a better one. As far as politically, I've always sort of been to the conservative side, and so I've watched a lot of shows and things that expose what the controllers are trying to do. I came across a video maybe 7 years ago, controversial figure, but it was Louis Farrakhan talking about None Dare Call It a Conspiracy, that book. And it was just such a passionate talk. And I was like, this can't be true, everything that he's saying. So I dug really deep into it to find that a lot of it was true. And that's a book from 1971. I think it's Gary Allen or John Allen, if I remember correctly. And just the things that he was saying about how the monetary system truly works was just shocking to me. So it was that plus the idea that I think a stable coin holds the key to mass adoption in crypto. So those two things really led me to want to create something like BankX. And so that's how it all started about 3 years ago.
So we actually just had David Ragsdale on. I don't know if you're familiar with that name, but he's the CEO and founder of Replatform Vegas. And Gentry, you're going to Replatform Vegas, the conference. One of the things we spoke about in terms of the parallel economy and what facets, what infrastructure we still need to build out, because ultimately the idea is to completely be independent of the establishment, the corporate America and whatnot. But so what he reiterated is that crypto has got it figured out to a certain extent. Of course, there's still things being worked out, but that crypto kind of led the whole parallel economy movement, really, in a lot of ways. And so now this stable coin aspect is becoming a lot more popular. And from what you said in one videos that I've seen of yours, it's becoming something more foundational as opposed to it being just an investment that, speculative to a certain extent. Stablecoin now allows it to actually be a currency. Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of the difference?
Yes, to your point, yes, crypto is the sort of foundation of freedom and autonomy. So we have to be careful about other people hijacking that, like what I think CBDCs and governments are trying to do is hijacking the true nature of what crypto is. So stable coins are this category within cryptocurrency. So they're all currencies, but what is unique to stable coins is that it's meant to track the value of an asset. Usually that's USD or some other asset, depending on what you would like to track. So with the wild price movements of, say, Bitcoin, the average family probably wouldn't want to partake in down moves, certainly the up moves. So the idea of a stable coin is that you're preserving value in some way, but yet still being in the cryptocurrency community and sort of following along the whole, you have complete control. There's no middlemen in between, all the things that can happen in the banking system.
So one of the questions I get all the time whenever I talk about crypto on social media is, what's the difference between a cryptocurrency and a CBDC?
Right. So we can certainly talk about the history of how the central bank is privately owned and all the things that they're doing, kind of how we got here. But the central bank digital currency is really just an evolution of more control mechanisms that they want to put in. It's not a cryptocurrency. It's basically, they can put something like a private blockchain that are on their servers that they're in complete control. They can program it any way they like. They can decide that if you don't fit a particular political agenda, they can shut you off. If they say, oh, we need the economy to move a little quicker, you need to spend your money in 30 days or you lose it. There's all of these different things that they can put in place to control an economy or just shut you off. There's even talk of different classes of CBDCs where, if you're at the banking level, you'd be able to do more than, say, the commoners could with their currency, as far as the ability to spend or to hold onto it for longer. And so it creates these classes of people in the economy, even worse than it is now. So I think they're really just using the marketing of the true nature of cryptocurrency to kind of insert their currency in where they have all these control mechanisms where people don't realize what's happening or are not educated or don't know that there's a choice. What I think is interesting, and we talked about this a bit, Gentry, before, was the digital yuan, where that's been released, where I think these countries are battling to see who can be the top CBDC and potentially dethrone the US, right? So you have the military using the dollar for trade. So you have the Belt and Road Initiative, which is being able to have China move throughout the world and do trade. And then you have the digital yuan, which I think has the potential of disrupting all of the US's infrastructure with all of our banks, how we push money out and loan through the IMF and World Bank, where with the digital yuan, it would be, well, download our app and we'll loan you $100 million to build that bridge. And you're a direct connection to the central bank. And so there, I think not only is there the choice between, do you want full autonomy in cryptocurrency or have all these control mechanisms within the CBDC, but then there's the battle of who could potentially win that for the people who choose to or be forced to use a CBDC. I think there's a couple or two or three ways that they would be able to get CBDCs to have even greater adoption. One is to force the use of it. They could continue to print into oblivion and crash fiat and say, well, just move over to this new system. It's pretty much the same. And we'll just leave the thing that we just wrecked behind, right?
It seems inevitable almost.
The way they're going. It's just, yeah. And then all of these USD stable coins, they could absorb into the banking system. And that could be sort of the hybrid into CBDC. So it's interesting to see how that will play out. It's very scary what they're looking at doing. Driving agendas like ESG, now DEI, would be all a part that are hooked into this whole CBDC idea. It's not anything that I think anybody wants once they really learn about it. It would have all the same elements, right? Because so when you look at the Federal Reserve Bank now, that's privately held by some of the families we've probably heard about and talked about. They can control the monetary policy through interest rates, buying bonds, capital requirements, printing money, obviously. CBDCs takes it to a whole new level with all of the tracking that they would be able to do and be able to shut you off and all of that. So it is not a cryptocurrency, I guess, is the short answer to all of that.
It seems like the ultimate fiat currency, actually. To me, it seems like it. I mean, isn't that kind of what they're doing already? With like the dollar itself, other than the physically printed dollars, they're all just numbers, in a system. So what differentiates this CBDC from what they're already doing?
I think it's pretty much. I mean, we're already in a digital currency right now because you use credit cards. You probably keep your money in a bank and then you pay your credit cards. Is pretty much how I operated for a long time. So I would argue we're already kind of there with digital currencies. It's just who's going to put this next phase in place. I think where there's not really banks, it's centralized to the central bank, and they're seeing everything. They're seeing all of their spending. They're controlling everything programmatically with sort of this centralized server program. That's really what it is. The complete opposite of, say, what Bitcoin is, where you have no single entity or person that could change the ledger, that can take your money, that can, if they have your wallet, they can see it because of its openness of the ledger aspect. But other than that, it's completely opposite to everything that crypto was meant to be or is.
So here's some breaking news, and I want to kind of get your guys' take on this. James O'Keefe from OMG, he did an undercover sting operation, and he was targeting the IRS. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's really interesting. So here, I'll read the tweet, and then I'd love to get your guys' takes because it's talking exactly about what we're talking about right now. So IRS officials, Alex Mina, who works in criminal investigation, says that he has no problem going after small people, putting people in prison, and destroying people's lives. Mina doubts the constitutionality of his employer, the IRS, using AI to access everybody's bank accounts nationwide.
It's everything we're talking about right here.
That's literally everything we're talking about, but they can do it right now. So what do you think that crypto's ability to stop the IRS from overreaching and trying to see every single transaction that we're doing?
Well, I think, Gentry, it gives people a choice. If they realize that this is happening, so people that don't want to be tracked or have AI look at what's happening in their bank account for whatever reason that they want to do, they're going to claim like, oh, we're trying to prevent money laundering and all of the things that they do, right? Like, so I always look at what's their sales pitch, what freedom are they taking away, and what's their end game. And so this, to me, that's their sales pitch would be, we're trying to stop money laundering and crime. So I think it just gets into, taking the responsibility and freedom that you would be in complete control of your own financial life, and you don't have any middlemen in between. I mean, so they're sort of talking, all the same things that have made me afraid of CBCs for quite some time. The other thing that I think is interesting, sort of, and not to sound the alarm, is this whole idea of how banks can now bail you in. If you remember that discussion about Obama passed this law that now the government doesn't bail out banks. Your deposits now become an asset of the bank should they fail. So these banks, if they overextend themselves or take this undue risk, they would basically look to the deposits that they already have on hand to satisfy any liabilities that they may have in bankruptcy or whatever. So it's really not, once you put it in a bank, it's not yours, right? So in crypto, we have a saying, not your keys, not your crypto, and it's even worse for a bank, right? So it's not your money once it's in the bank account. It's technically an asset of the bank in the new bail-in laws.
So what you're saying is that Obama legalized the banks being able to steal our money for their mismanagement.
Yeah, if they mismanage, then you are their parachute, basically. Yeah. So, yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
I mean, it's not surprising, honestly. When you think about actually what these huge bills that are passed, these $200 billion, and what's actually holding up the US dollar, they're leveraging us. They're leveraging human capital. Well, not me because I'm in Canada, but they're leveraging you guys. Because what else instills confidence in the dollar but the American people and the productivity of the American people? So it's this weird, we don't need to get philosophical about it, but it's this weird enslavement circle. And to get out of that, that's the whole point of the parallel economy and crypto leading the way, because your money is supposed to be representative of what you produce, right? It's supposed to be representative of actual wealth. The dollars today, them just printing out nonsense, it's not representative of any real material wealth. It's this fiat game that they're playing.
There's so much there, Michael, as far as the private Federal Reserve printing money out of thin air, funding both sides of wars. They get this money for nothing and charging citizens of countries interest. So it's not just the control aspect, but you have these wealthy banks that own the Federal Reserve banks in all, I think, but 3 countries, where they continue to build their wealth by charging the citizens interest, and then who knows how these wars really happen, but the money interests probably want wars to happen. So there's so much there with kind of that comment around the dollar and us forcing it as trade between countries with our military. That's why we have bases everywhere. It really, I think, is a core of a lot of the problems here on Earth. And so when I thought, what could I do that would have the biggest impact? I thought it would be something that could counter this whole CBDC thing. So I think there's a lot there to the whole, when you started talking about the US dollar and what it's doing to take from people and cause problems, just from a philosophical perspective.
Yeah, one of my brothers actually mentioned that to me, and I didn't really think, I hadn't really crossed my mind that the only reason there's still faith in the US dollar is because of the US military. Or not even faith. That's not even the faith aspect. That's the enforcement aspect, right? If we didn't have military bases in almost every country in the world, I mean,
yeah,
is that not accurate?
Yeah, I would,
in terms of
I
it
would
being a
almost
reserve
exchange
currency.
the word faith with demand. So, right. So you saw in the Putin interview with Tucker Carlson where he was talking about, I don't know what the U.S. is doing, but there's people shifting away and using, I'm trading with China using the yuan. So you see a shift in the percentage going down of the amount of U.S. dollars used in international trade. So I would argue there's a couple things that are still propping up the U.S. It's trade, and then all of the foreign debt that we've sort of, being a good country and lending this out to countries, is we have lent that in U.S. dollars, so the interest is paid back in U.S. dollars. I think those are some of the two primary drivers to create demand. And so when those start to dry up, I think we're going to have problems. So we're able to lean against that and be able to print trillions still and not go Venezuela quite yet, but not saying we won't get there. But that's really saving us, is I think those two key things from a demand perspective on the dollar. So,
Brianna,
you touched on the parallel economy a little bit. And I was thinking the other day about how, we're putting in all this work to build the parallel economy, and we've got, Public Square and tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of businesses on there now. And the thought keeps crossing my mind of like, how long can we continue to do that before they freeze our bank accounts like they did with the Canadian truckers and stuff like that? It seems like crypto is the only way for the parallel economy to really establish itself and thrive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so, because once you have the crypto in your wallet and you've properly secured the keys, and you could start with something very simple like a browser wallet called something that I like, MetaMask, METAMASK. I think that's a really good one to start with. It gets you sort of used to like, oh, there's no one there. And if I want to send someone money, it's there in a minute. It could be someone halfway around the world.
That's what I just downloaded, actually. And it's very user-friendly, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so early on in 2017, I started to realize like, oh, I was like, someone sent me Bitcoin from Australia. It was just incredible, because I was texting with them, and within 5 minutes, I was like, to do this in a bank, I'd have to walk in, set aside creating an account, and have to do all this KYC stuff. And then he would have to go in and, depending on the amount, have to jump through a bunch of hoops and have managers sign it. And it's just gotten ridiculous, the barriers, right?
And by the time it gets to you, you probably have, 10% of it taken.
Yeah, or just, with all the fees and middlemen that go through. Yeah. As right now, it would be like if someone wanted to send money to another country and they didn't have an account, it'd be Western Union and all of that. But I do think, Brianna, that is the key to sort of separating from this whole corrupt system is just getting used to, I have my own keys and I can have money in there and start to do things. Crypto is there's a lot going on with it. It's probably too much to talk in our sort of first discussion, but there's all kinds of things once you start. It gets addicting. So I spend a couple hours a day just keeping up with everything that's going on with crypto, new projects, different things and protocols and economic principles that they're trying to see if we can leverage to create and replicate the current legacy banking system. So it's it's a very creative time. It's a lot of fun to be involved with.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what bankx.io is and how you think it fits into the parallel economy?
Yeah. So what we did in looking at CBDCs is the whole idea of, there's middlemen, you're not in control, they're earning the interest, to where it's just you and the blockchain. So you own the crypto collateral, you use that to create the stable coin. So there's a term called minting in crypto, where it's the creation of a currency, and that's done by, a certain event. With BankX, you put crypto on the blockchain, and that mints our stable coin, which tracks the price of 1 gram of silver. So we thought that was a much better inflationary hedge than pegging it to the dollar. And so at any time, you can turn the stablecoin back into the system and get the collateral that you originally put in to create the stablecoin. So again, the stablecoin is a cryptocurrency that's meant to track the price of a certain asset. Usually that's the US dollar. What's unique is about this is obviously there's no middlemen, but you earn the interest for creating the stablecoin, so that the stablecoin, the entire time that it's in circulation, you're earning interest, and you're paid that when you turn in the stablecoin to get your collateral back. Without getting into sort of a bunch of the features, this is a stablecoin that's built for individual freedom and to bring out equality through a system that no one can stop, that's completely decentralized. So it's the exact opposite of a CBDC, and we call it the ICDC, or the individual created digital currency, because we wanted to have a competing acronym that I don't want to see.
It goes a long way, actually.
That's right.
It really does.
Yeah. And Fabian helped us coin that, right? So the whole idea that
of course he's our marketing genius.
That's right. Yeah. So,
but the left are masters at that, right? Of taking terms and just making them these
repackaging and
and just making them very mainstream and whatnot. Yeah.
ESG becomes DEA. All of this stuff. So we did a little bit of the same thing to sort of give them a taste of their own medicine there. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So if I told you I'm a bit of a noob in this, so stablecoin is something that does not fluctuate as much, and it's usually pegged or follows either a precious metal or the US dollar, some of them. So that's a stablecoin, but so you have your own coins or you have your own tokens?
So the stablecoin is a token, and we've deployed on and are deploying on multiple blockchains. So right now we're on Ethereum, Binance, and then we'll go through where we'll be on about 70% of where all the crypto is.
Okay, so this is a BankX stablecoin.
Yes, it's a BankX stablecoin, but it'll be on multiple blockchains. So again,
can you unpack that a little bit, how that works?
So they're all different deployments, independent of each other. So it's further decentralization. So not only do you have each blockchain that's decentralized, but now you have different deployments of BankX on different blockchains. And the reason why we did that is because there's strengths and weaknesses to different blockchains. Like some are faster, some are much cheaper, some are designed to do different things. But we think they all need a stable coin. Maybe one of the blockchains that we deployed on, it fails, or there's just not a lot of people that come and use it. Right now, Ethereum has about 60 to 65% of all of the decentralized finance. So they're the sort of the clear leader. And then it sort of goes Binance, and then some of the other blockchains like Arbitrum and some of the others. So we thought it was important to be on multiple blockchains because I do think the future is not just a one chain environment. It's not just going to be Bitcoin, because there's so many aspects to decentralized finance that we need to have blockchains that do things specific to what their use case would be, as an example.
Is it fair to say that so each one of these blockchains are, so to put it, well, to go to the layman's terms for people that are noobs like me, is it like the NASDAQ versus the New York Stock Exchange or whatnot? Each one of these are ledgers that this coin is on, as opposed to being a company on. Is that an accurate
you could
analogy?
I think you could say it's more like Android versus Apple versus maybe 6 others, right? So not a ledger. I mean, it's not really an operating system, but it kind of is, right? So it's all a ledger. It's all distributed ledger technology, but they all have sort of different data structures, and they have different ways of deciding what is the true version of the ledger, right? So Bitcoin is known for its what they call proof of work. So it's a mathematical problem you have to solve that validates transactions. And then you have other ones that are faster and have their own pros and cons. So I think those are the sort of key differences. And But the future is definitely multi-chain, and I like that aspect because, as we talked about, it's further decentralization of the whole system, actually.
So how long do you think it will take to get mass adoption to all this? Because it seems like a lot of the infrastructure is built out. So one of the things that at least what I see is like, how do we get more people to understand it to a point where they can use it, right? Because I love crypto and I talk about it all the time, and I try to get people to buy and sell, when I do, and everyone's like, no, I just don't want to buy it because I don't understand it, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is maybe Gentry. The one part is like easier to use on the front end because, as you said, a lot of the infrastructure is built. A lot of people don't know that there's credit cards that you could preload with crypto. So then you could go use them at any point of sale. So they won't even know that you're spending crypto. So there's that conversion that happens automatically on the back end. So I think what's going to happen is, I always think of technology. Was it Jeffrey Moore, his book, A Law of Diffusion of Innovation, where there's this, you have early adopters, and then you get to a point where you're at 12 or 13%, where you go from sort of early majority and late majority, which is the mass of the people. And I think we're still a bit ways away from sort of getting to that tipping point that he talks about in the book. So it's very early on for people to start getting involved. I think there's something like 250 to 300 million wallets. So with 8 billion people, we still have our work to go, but it's moving very fast. The idea that now they have ETFs for Bitcoin and soon to be Ethereum, and that's very big. To answer your question, I think we're still early on with that, but those I think would be some key inflection points where people start to learn more about it, and they could use it in their day-to-day life, or say, they're operating on their credit card, as kind of talked about how I operate anyway, right, with mostly credit cards. And so you could do that with crypto now. So there's quite a number of solutions out there that can do that. So I think it's a lot of education and getting to people that I think have the same sort of values as the crypto movement, where they want to separate from this whole legacy banking system. And so I think those are going to, I think, be a really big beachhead set of customers and of crypto in general, actually. So, but I think those are two key things that need to happen. More user friendly, the idea that you can interface with legacy banking with crypto, and then it'll go from there. And then I think there's going to be some transition where you can just scan a QR code and pay, much like you're doing now, pretty much, right? So I think it'll be more of a phase thing over time, maybe 5 to 10 years. But I don't know. It just depends on what they do to the U.S. dollar. You just, if they have some problems with it, it might accelerate people to run away from it.
Do you think we won't see like massive amounts of people switching to cryptocurrencies until, let's say, the U.S. switches to like a CBDC?
Hopefully not. Hopefully we get first, right?
Yeah. If it just depends on how they introduce this CBDC. If they just say, we crashed the dollar, let's move over to this new CBDC, and it'll just sort of reset everything. That could be one way. It's really hard to say, Brianna, because these people are so crazy. I think anything's on the table for them to maintain control. And this is very threatening to them, obviously, to just have wallets that they don't know who owns it. You can move it to any other wallet and then send it to somebody and then just be in complete freedom. They can't deal with it, So I don't know what they'll do with everything that we all seen of what they're capable of.
I'm very worried about 2024, to tell you the truth.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is a scary year with. They're flooding the borders and just all of this stuff, and I think the cornerstone is the banking system, because it's a source of deep control, sort of the ability to literally print money, but got to do whatever they need to do to fund whatever things they're trying to accomplish and agendas. So it's going to be it'll have to be sort of this phased out approach, I would think.
Because
So
climate change. Sorry, go ahead. I love bringing it back to climate change. I'll do that
Yeah.
later.
no, I actually have a kind of an
Climate change's fault.
I have an interesting question, because if they do crash the US dollar and transition us over to like a US CBDC, does that mean that all the debt that's currently out there is null and void because we're trading in a different currency?
Yeah, that could be their one of their resets, or part of their great reset. It's like, oh, well, that's the old system. We're on something new, right? So I mean, that's what I would do if I was them, right? I mean, you could kind of wipe the slate clean and then start printing again. And, 100 years later, we're another 30 or 40 trillion in debt, paying interest on it to these private banks, right? So, yeah,
it's a big joke in a lot of ways. I mean, they're really scrambling to try to make sense of it themselves, right? They created this big behemoth that it's getting to the point where it doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah, it almost feels like they're setting it up for China to do that, right? To be so, like, do they crash the US dollar and then, okay, well, let's move the digital yuan and we'll trade in that. And then that's a CBDC. So they may not have to be the US dollar. I don't know. It feels to me, right? I mean, if there's less trade, like that's going down under Biden, it seems like they're phasing, and then you have BRICS coming in, so like Brazil and some of the other countries, right? So there's another competing coalition of countries on what to trade in. So it could, so there's a little, I think they've been setting up China for a while, right? So that could be a potential too. But I think the answer is that you take control of your own financial sort of life and be in a position where, you're in complete control of what you do financially, and you don't have to go to a bank, right? Because I think there was an FDIC video that came out, and they said, the public probably has a lot more faith in the banking system than we do.
I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do. That we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out.
This is an FDIC guy saying this, and there's video. If you guys, I'll send you guys the video. And
please.
And then another guy says, well, we want them to know they can be bailed in, and a bank can take their money, but we don't want them to know so much that they make a run on the bank and deplete the sort of the reserves that the bank has, but they will be bailed in. Like, you should hear it, and they laugh at it.
A little bit conflicted, right? I mean, it's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be. And it could be an early warning signal to the FDIC and the primary regulators when these things happen.
It should be accessible when people need to know, but I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
Yeah, so there.
I mean, I would too if I was in that. If I was, I'm like, it's like, what are we doing here? All right, let's just make something else up. Let's do CBDCs. Please, I got it.
But it's a video of their meeting, and I think it's from an FDIC meeting. I can't remember, but it's wild what they're laughing and saying about it. So they know, right? Because bail-ins would cause a much bigger disaster than, say, a bailout. Because we've lived through a lot of bailouts, right? But when families and hardworking people have their money in the bank and then they can't get to it because now it's being used to settle a derivative debt that they went crazy on, and it didn't work out the way they thought it was that would, then it's so.
Can you kind of re-explain what a bail-in means? Because bailout is, we've seen movies about it. What is a bail-in?
So the bailout, as you said, is like the government comes in and they'll take receivership, they'll print, they'll write a bill and
Well, they'll use our
allocation.
debt, our
Yeah,
our future money instead of our present money.
Yeah, they'll print it. They'll do whatever they need to do. They'll put it in receivership and take control of it and that sort of thing. But a bail-in is where the government is not involved anymore at all from a financial perspective, I think. And what they do is they use the depositors' money to settle up any problems or liabilities that the bank has. So if there's money on account that you have and that bank has a problem, they go to the depositor's money to settle any issues with the bank rather than the government stepping in. Right.
This
So
sounds insane. Like
yeah,
this sounds.
it is. It is because it's been this progression, Michael, right? So when we first bailed out a bank, it kind of messaged to the banks like, oh, well, the government's going to step in if you screw up. So you shift over the risk to the public sector and then you privatize the profits, right? So it's like, I can't lose, right? So if whatever I'm doing wins, I get the profits. And if I lose, the government will just step in and make me whole, right? So now that's not the case. Now depositors will be holding the bag for anything that the banks may do that doesn't work out, as an example.
I mean, we already have fractional reserve banking, so
I was just thinking that, like, their leverage 100 to 1.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere you look, it's just not set up for good for the individual. It's just not. It's just all continuing to compound and leverage up money that's not real on top of not real money, right? And
so the moral of the story from what I'm hearing from you is that the bankers always win. And so it's better to be your own banker through crypto and BankX than these guys who are just playing Monopoly and gambling with your money.
Right. I mean, that's what we've tried to set up and give people the option to do, is where, they're in complete control. They own the crypto collateral that they can create the stable coin. They can turn it in anytime they like to get their collateral back. And then the entire time that they've kept that stable coin in circulation, they're the ones earning the interest rather than, the private reserve bank. And
well, can you actually explain that? Because that's what I saw from videos of you and on BankX on YouTube explaining, is that other companies or other exchanges or people that are doing similar things to you, they are the ones making the money on the interest. So it's just like the way banks work. You put your deposits in, they use it to invest all over the place. That's literally the banking money making model. What differentiates BankX from these other ones?
So not all stable coins are created equal, and we might want to save a lot of the discussion around some of that if you'd like for a longer discussion. But in general, you've heard of stable coins like Tether, USDT, or USDC. So their minting event is when you send $1 to their account. So they hold your dollar on account, and then they give you a Tether. So that's how those are minted. They can also print them. So Tether has raised some suspicion of, do they really have the dollars in their account for all the Tether they have out there? So it's the same sort of like game that the Federal Reserve is playing. Like, do we really have the Tether out there that for dollars?
Like, so are they inflating it? They could easily inflate it.
They could. And so, but they have attestations that say, oh, we have the 50 billion in for the 50 billion Tether, right? So it gets into that whole centralization argument of, like, we have an entity that's controlling it. But to your point of they're making the money, is when you put the US dollar in there, a lot of that treasury, they'll go and buy T-bills. So if you have 50 billion or so earning, what is it for? It's probably more now, right? 5% or whatever it is. They're making billions a year off of your money by putting it in there to get Tether. And then there gets into, different aspects of other stable coins. So this was almost a 2.5 year R&D project where I looked at the different stable coins in the market and what were the things that were good and bad about them. And certainly with USDT and USDC, those were some of the things that I didn't like, where, it was centralized, but then they're also earning all of the interest on your capital.
So how does BankX, what's the BankX business model then?
So we mimicked a protocol that has proven that you can inflate a currency for staking the same currency where the staking rate is higher than the inflation rate. So an example of this is the protocol is called Hex. So you take their token and you stake it. And for staking it, you earn interest in the form of more of their tokens. So they inflate the token 3.69% per year, but they get a staking rate of 9.8% per year. So you have 3.69% inflation and then a 9.8% staking rate, which is effectively removing that from supply. So you have a net deflationary effect within the token economy. So we took that concept and brought it to a stable coin, and that's how we pay you interest. So our mechanism for paying you interest is completely decentralized. So you might have heard of some protocols like Celsius and got into trouble because they were overextending themselves trying to earn the return to keep their customers. I think at the time they had about 20 billion in assets. And so anytime there's centralization, it can eventually cause a problem. So in every area to counter the CBDC, I look for ways of how it could be decentralized, where no one person or entity could go and sort of mess up things. Centralization gets to a point where it's deeply controlled, corrupted, and messed up. That's sort of like how the progression happens there. So, but that's probably, I don't know how detailed you want to get into that.
No, I think that was too much already. For the next one, we'll go into more detail.
Yeah. It's a very
simmer a little bit.
Yeah, very big system, Michael. We looked at protocols, what they're doing, what worked, and then did they prove the economic principle that they were set out to do? And when they did, we took that, right? So that's the general that's the takeaway you could get from that. But yeah, it's quite involved.
I'd like to go into it further, but just when we have more time and more brain capital, because it's getting late here in Canada. on the East Coast, sorry, not in Canada.
Absolutely. But in general, just I think if we were to leave a message of what the alternative is that you have all the control. It's meant for individual freedom to create equality between everyone in a system where you own the collateral, you're creating the stable coin. There's no one in between earning fees, and you're the one that's earning for taking part in that action and keeping that stable coin in circulation. And at any time you can go and interact with the blockchain with MetaMask, like what you downloaded, and you don't have to do or get anyone's permission to do that. It's completely trustless, and it's just you, your wallet, and the blockchain, without getting into all the mechanisms of how we do. So, but yeah, I would absolutely love to spend more time and talk about it, because a lot we could go through sort of the history of stable coins and just their importance. I think they do hold the key to mass adoption. I think it's something like 75% of trades in crypto involve some sort of stable coin. So it's a good reference point of being able to determine value through all the trading pairs. So I mean, they're very important. And so that's why I think they're worried about some killer stable coin coming out there, and just, a CBDC not even being able to touch it is from a sort of like benefit.
I think the CBDCs are getting some very good bad press from our clan, if you will, or our side. And what got me thinking, or what I thought about as you guys were talking about the mass adoption side, is the majority of people don't really want to understand how their money works. I don't know if that's fair to say or not. They want functionality. They want ease of use. They don't necessarily want to get into the nitty-gritty of this conversation we're having, let's say, of how it works. So if you could provide something that is functional, that is this credit card that you can use without asking questions, and they can see that it also allows them to decentralize. And so if you make that connection and make it easy to use, That is what I think is the key there. A lot of people are becoming distrustful of the government. And so I think people are leaning that way, but they don't really want to understand all of this stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think so. It's the, ease of use, being able to interface with sort of legacy banking. And then if you're holding crypto, can you hold your value? And so that's one of the key aspects of a stable coin. So we could sort of add a third point on there with that, Michael, right? So so I think those are things that would be in place, but we just don't know when things are going to happen. Do they want to try to crash things before the election, or is it right after? Let's say, Trump clearly has the victory now. So do they want to hand him just a complete mess and say it was him? So there's all these different scenarios.
It's definitely a wild card right now.
Yeah,
they don't have a COVID in their back pocket, so I don't know what they're going to do now.
Yeah, they can't pull that again. I think they were trying that.
Yeah, they tried. Yeah, of course. I saw some people masking again. I saw some people, alone in their cars masking. But for the most part, I don't think it works.
Yeah. So I'm very afraid. So I'm not in the stock market. I don't really keep any money in the banks. So I'm an all crypto person. So when I say all these things, I'm not so quietly, trading stocks and doing all this other stuff and putting money in investment bankers and all that kind of stuff. So I think crypto is the future. It needs to happen to put all of this corruption aside that's in the banking system. And I do think it's the future. And the interesting thing, not to get off of stablecoins, is that it's not just a currency. This new technology of using a decentralized ledger is going to touch every industry, because it could be used to represent real world assets. It could be used to represent ownership of stocks. You could verify data. You could store your identity and verify your identity on the blockchain. So it's not just like I own Bitcoin and I can send it to someone. It's the underlying technology has much more far-reaching implications. And I think it's much bigger than the impact that the internet has. So, so
that's a big statement.
Yeah, I think so. And I would even almost say that it would be a sort of like a 10x impact of the internet, because it'll touch every industry to remove middlemen. So you look at cryptocurrency removing the banking personnel as middlemen, could do the same thing with sort of any industry with this. So they're already building that out, where they represented ownership of a resort on the blockchain and then fractionalized it, and then you could sell the ownership of that resort. So I want people to understand too that this is very big technology, and it's not just cryptocurrency about this. But I think stable coins are the key part of crypto as it relates to bringing on more people.
What do you think about putting voting on the blockchain?
So that's a perfect use case I didn't bring up in all the examples, but yeah. So we would know your identity is real because we could verify that on the blockchain, and then when you vote, we know that it was you because it was your identity that actually placed that vote, and then everyone could be able to see what are the votes without linking, you could separate the. So people didn't know that you voted for a certain person and may not like that idea, right? So, but everything would be in this.
But it would be very auditable.
Yes, exactly. Auditable by everyone, right? So blockchain right now, you could go to websites and see transactions. It would be the same aspect. And so it really is sort of open and not able to be tampered with. Because if it was able to be tampered with, they would have stopped Bitcoin a long time ago. So it's been out in the wild for 13 years, I believe, was the first trade of Bitcoin back in 2010. So if they wanted it to be broken or hacked, they would have stopped it, because they don't like it out there. That's for sure. So it's I would love to see an application like that, right? Because certainly there was a lot of things that went on with this last election. I mean, it's hilarious. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
it's absurd.
I was fascinated for 6 months just looking at, Lord, they did all of that, and UPS driver driving 300,000 votes from Pennsylvania, then to have it counted again in Georgia, just like, I know you guys probably are seeing all that stuff. It's just outrageous.
It's truly impressive, actually, which is the crazy thing. Like, you have to kind of look at it in awe and see how they tried to get rid of Trump for 4 years with impeachment after impeachment, blah, blah, blah. But the whole time they were planning this in their back. Like, it was very extensive of a plan, right? It's impressive.
Yeah, it really is there.
But it's also messed up because they installed somebody in the most powerful country in the world. They installed a geriatric patient with dementia.
Talk. Yeah, he can't form a sentence. It's unreal. So it didn't really matter who. Yeah, he was.
It's really
fascinating. But at this point, Michael, I think we should leave him in because it's so close to. You don't want to put someone in there that can talk now after we.
No.
Correct.
No Gavin Newsom.
Right.
I think you're right.
He's much
man.
easier
Gavin
to
Newsom
beat.
But yeah, I think we have something special with BankX, and people are welcome to learn more about it as we deploy on other chains, and it really is designed for individual freedom and to be an alternative to everything we're hearing. I think even I heard Trump say we will never have a CBDC in America, but the problem is like he can only say that for another 4 years once he's in.
Yeah,
they're going to keep coming. These people don't stop until.
Okay, this is where climate change comes in. All right, because I truly believe that all of these psychopaths, these sociopaths at the WEF and at Davos and whatnot, I think they truly believe that the overpopulation of the planet is causing this global warming, climate change stuff, and this is their driver. I think there's a handful of people that know that it's nonsense and are using it, but I think these leaders of the world, like Trudeau, this clown that we have up here in the Great White North, he truly believes this, and these ideologues are the most dangerous people because they think that they are saviors of the planet, which is but so that they want this to be true. But so anyways, that's where my climate change. I wasn't throwing it out of nowhere.
That's the sales pitch, right? So that's the sales pitch. We're saving you, but eat bugs and own nothing, and then we'll control your currency. So it's kind of like, all right, so you're
all right,
saving.
F off.
That's right. So,
yeah, get out of here.
Yeah, it's scary if they get their way. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Do we want to wrap up and we can go over more detail in another one?
Yeah.
I don't know how.
I think that's a great. I mean, we've been going for an hour. Lance, do you want to plug the website just one more time and then where everybody can follow you?
Yeah, sure. So if you'd like to learn more about BankX, our website is a great place to start at www.bankx.io. There's some general information there, and our YouTube channel is linked also on the site.
There's a lot of information on the YouTube channel. Yeah,
I
learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Everywhere really, our socials and Twitter is at BankXIO, and I'm at Lance Parker IO.
At Lance Parker. Perfect.
IO with the IO at the end. Yeah.
So just before we end off, a comment that I've been ruminating about during this discussion is that this is kind of so. At some point in American history, there was no income tax, right? And the founders kind of imagined a country where the banking system would be decentralized. Then you have Alexander Hamilton, who starts the first national bank, and it's a long story from there. But this whole idea and what you're doing with BankX seems like you're coming at it from a philosophical standpoint and a standpoint that is not just like, all right, let's make money and blah, blah, blah. It's really like, all right, this is a corrupt system. Like, we're in trouble here. We need to create this parallel economy. So that's why BankX for me really stands out as something that is different, but it's returning us to these foundational principles that are so important to us at Breakaway USA.